Hey friends, you got Renee Rivera here at Mold Mending. Did you know that Alzheimer's, one type of it, can actually be caused by mold exposure? Yeah, isn't that surprising? And actually that Alzheimer's can be reversed. This is good news. So I'm going to share more about that right here. Hey friends, so this inhalation Alzheimer's disease message has been broken up into two parts. Reason being that those of us with SIRS or a chronic illness, sometimes we need shorter messages in order to retain it, process it, apply it. So I thought this one, there will be a full version of it as well as a two-parter. So this first one, I was also dealing with inflammation that day of recording. So just giving you that little note there why I was referring to the notes, just a little extra. So part one, we'll cover the articles, what inhalation Alzheimer's disease is, as well as cover some of the learning disabilities and impairments of verbal and written language. So there are actually 6 types of Alzheimer's, and the subtype number 3 is caused by biotoxin exposure, such as caused by mycotoxins emitted by mold. And this subtype 3 Alzheimer's is actually called inhalation Alzheimer's disease, also known as IAD. This is an unrecognized and a treatable epidemic. The other thing that I have learned is that it is also a manifestation of CIRS, which is the illness I have, chronic inflammatory response syndrome. That's what CIRS is. And it can affect some CIRS patients if there are extra stressors involved, extra metal toxicities or other toxicities involved. There can be other factors that tie into the CIRS illness that then turns it up a notch to the inhalation Alzheimer's disease. Now, I don't know if you remember or not, maybe a month ago or so, I did a small message on my forgetting music. And I had mentioned in that that some of my symptoms are similar to this. And that's why I'm bringing this up to you. So I promised then I'd share a little bit more about it. So today we're going to go even further. So mold can harm the brain, and it creates a neurodegeneration. Yes, it's a big word, which is a cognitive decline, brain functioning decline. Those with this type 3 Alzheimer's disease, once they are removed from the toxin environment and properly treated, that person affected can actually regain sanity, health, and even cognitive stability again. So there's hope for those of us that have it and those out there that you may know and didn't realize there could be a way to reverse it. So there's a gentleman named, I gotta read it right, Dale E. Bredessen, B-R-E-D-E-S-E-N. He wrote an amazing article on this inhalation Alzheimer's disease, IAD. And in that article, let me tell you where it's found. It's at the ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. This is where his study was posted, and you could read it all in detail. I'm actually going to read you just an excerpt of it right now. Get my glasses. Here I report the type 3 Alzheimer's disease is a phenotypic manifestation of CIRS. Both may present with cognitive decline that goes beyond a restricted amnestic presentation to include executive dysfunction and other deficits, as well as depression, hypoxemia, hypersensitivity to stress, and dysfunction of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which is the HPA axis. At Ergopathics, I found an article about this as well, and I'm just going to read you a little bit of excerpt of that. It says mycotoxins that can contribute to SIRS and IAD, that's what we're talking about here, inhalation, Alzheimer's disease. They are produced by molds such as Stachybotrys, I always say that wrong, Stachybotrys, Penicillium, and Aspergillus that grow in water-damaged homes and basements. Studies in 2014 and 2015 found fungal infections in the central nervous systems and brains of Alzheimer's patients, thereby supporting a microbial etiology for AD. Inhalation, Alzheimer's disease, occurs typically in younger people in their late 40s to early 60s, with symptom onset following a period of a great stress. The IAD is not amnestic, which is memory related, but is instead cortical with dyscalculia. Sorry if I'm botching up these words. The dyscalculia is a learning disability in math and or aphasia, which is an impairment of verbal or written language. It's interesting, it talks about the disability in math and also the impairment of verbal and written language, because I was affected by that. I'm also affected by memory with this mold illness, but they're saying that the Alzheimer's disease is not the memory related piece, but it's the learning disability like in math and the impairment of verbal and written language. There's a lot more about that, but I wanted to share with you ways that mold actually affected my brain and put me in a similar dementia Alzheimer's state due to the black mold almost killing me where we lived. And then it did travel to my brain, as I was told that it was there. And it also colonized even in my sinus passages. And I've been treated for that. So wanted to go down this list of things that relate to this article of how my body was affected by mold and what my brain did as a result. So not only, like I said, had the colonized mold, that's called Marcons, M-A-R-C-O-N-S. But besides that, conversations for me were very hard to follow. Listening, deciphering, being able to interpret body language of others, and then to be able to even reciprocate back in a conversation. That was difficult. I have my brain back for that now that I've been treated and I'm out of the mold environment, thank God. What else? I could not place words in sentences, and it talked about that in the article. It was very difficult for a sentence to come out of my mouth. This was especially during my bedridden time, for almost about 6 months, but even a little bit afterwards, those words they were misfiring. I couldn't capture a word. I would be blank when I, start something like a conversation. I'd start a sentence, and then all of a sudden it's like I got stuck because I couldn't bring that word to my tongue and speak it out. There was just a disconnect. Effects of even being able to write out letters, or could not put together sentences. I could not put together emails. Texting was even a little bit difficult. I know it talked about it's not affected by your memory, but for me, I forgot people. I forgot jobs that I had just done. I forgot places. I forgot conversations. My short-term memory did get affected. I forgot when I was cooking. That's pretty crazy. Play was hard for me. So like when I was in that bedridden state and at the very beginning of this healing piece, and at different times when I'm in a dip, because of other inflammation that's come, other stressors and other inflammation that's come into my life, play and thinking and the mathematical figuring out things that had been stressed. So like when we were first staying with friends while I was in the beginning of my healing stage and in that bedridden state, they would play a lot of card games. I would come out and I would just get overwhelmed because I'd see all these numbers in their decks of cards, and you know, you're supposed to be able to, I can't even remember the game at the moment, but you had to be able to place the cards in a certain series, and there had to be like addition and subtraction, and there had to be a strategy, and all that was overwhelming for me. So couldn't even touch those kind of things, following directions. And even it was talking about, what did it say? Let me find that word again. Now it was talking about learning disability, impairment of verbal and written language, but another article even talked about the inability to even do your natural, the skills that your brain tells your body to do. Like for me, I wish I could remember what that word was, but for me, even swallowing was affected. Like I struggled one time where I was eating an apple and I'm like, why isn't that going down? The apple was just getting stuck in my throat, not because it was a big piece, but it was because my body was forgetting that I needed to swallow. The function, yeah, use the word dysfunction. My body was becoming dysfunctional and forgetting its job in certain places. And for me, it was swallowing was one place that my body was forgetting it needed to be doing. And so I literally had to sit there and go, Renee, move your tongue. Renee, push the spit down. Renee, move your throat. Push it down. Drink some water. Push it down. It was a manual labor that I had to walk myself through to accomplish swallowing. It was ridiculous. So I'm glad that I noticed that and was able to pay attention to it, tell it to my doctor. So anyway, those are some of the ways that the inhalation, Alzheimer's disease affected me beyond my CIRS. And I'm not saying that I had it. I've never been diagnosed with it, but boy, do I fit a lot of these things, and I can relate to those that do have it. Friends were saying that I was at definitely the beginning stages of Alzheimer's and dementia. And it was quite scary because I thought that's how I would always be. But because of getting treatment, first getting out of the environment, getting the treatment, it's reversed all of these things. So I now can follow conversations. I can now engage and be able to reciprocate and be able to be an encouragement back, and having heard what they said and being able to translate it emotionally and mentally and be able to give back in even conversations and all these other things. I'm beginning to gain, like remembering things, remembering people, places, conversations. I now am not doing this misfiring of when I'm cooking. And that was scary because I would put food on the stove and then walk away and then totally forget that I was cooking. And my friends, thank God that they were around when I was going through this heavily. My husband and two friends of ours that we stayed with, they paid attention a lot to me and helped. What's the word? They helped protect me from myself because of what I was misfiring. So some of the doctors that have a lot of information on this inhalation is Dr. Gupta, G-U-P-T-A. He has a video that he made with, I believe it's Mary Ackerley. The video is called Brain on Fire. For everybody that's a newbie to CIRS or even to this, or want to know how mold affects a brain, watch that video, Brain on Fire. And you could even go further with Dr. Gupta, and he has a course, and it's a course that I've been taking as well. I think it's Mold Illness Made Simple. So another doctor is Jill Carnahan, and then another is Dr. Ritchie Shoemaker. And there's not a lot, but there's some on this inhalation Alzheimer's. And so I'm going to read you another excerpt from Dale Bredessen's article. And I love that he's talking about Dr. Ritchie Shoemaker, because I was actually going to mention that here. But I'm just going to read a piece of that article. It says, most importantly, Dr. Shoemaker and his colleagues developed an effective therapeutic regimen for SIRS. This is a complicated multi-step regimen that includes toxin binding by cholestyramine, treatment of Marcone's, which I mentioned earlier, by BEG nasal spray, and that the ingredients in that is Bactroban, EDTA, and gentamicin. And then also intranasal VIP, which is a vasoactive intestinal peptide, removal of the toxin source, addressing all of the hormonal, gastrointestinal, and other biochemical abnormalities. An example would be the antidiuretic hormone administration if indicated, and follow-up laboratory tests to ensure return to normal. So that's sharing a little bit of Dr. Shoemaker's protocol for treating that mold patient. But the other things to do is leave your mold environment. The person who is affected by this Alzheimer's needs to get out of that moldy environment. That's dangerous. And they need to get out of the toxin environments that they are in as well. They need to be treated by a functional doctor. Integrative specialist is who I go to. And there are special mold doctors that have been licensed under Dr. Ritchie Shoemaker. You can look for them online. They might be having one in your area or in the area of that person that you want to have treated. But they specifically help you detox the mold from within your body and within your brain, including the nasal passage. And I had mentioned Dr. Shoemaker from that article, and earlier, he's created a protocol. And I just gave you some of the details of that protocol, but it's very detailed, and it's can be found in the Surviving Mold Life in the Era of Dangerous Buildings book, or find that online on his website. And there's also that document that he created called Detox Pathways. It's actually a very colorful, full-scale diagram of all the steps to take somebody who is a SIRS patient through to rid all these different toxins and stressors out of their body to bring them back to health. And then lastly, the other things to help to reverse this is changing not just the mold environment, but the other environments that you might be in that are toxic, as well as what are you bringing into your body, any of those kind of toxins, as well as changing your diet. So I am proof that mold can damage your brain and can cause that neurodegeneration that I mentioned earlier, which is a cognitive decline and so many other things. You want to learn more, check out those doctors I mentioned and check out that article. And I pray that those that are in your life or you yourself who suspect that you might have this, ask your doctor. So I am grateful that this type 3 inhalation Alzheimer's disease is something that can be reversed. That's pretty exciting that there are studies out there proving that this type has a cause and that cause can be removed and that they can be healed from it. That's huge. So hope that brings you hope. Remember, we can be well even while ill. You have an awesome day.